random confession time. I don't think I have ever been as in love with somebody else's dogs as I am yours. And
well, hopefully we won't hear them. I don't know. I've instructed my husband. I'm like, take them downstairs. I don't know. But yeah,
they
you're
should
always
come
so
on the
sweet.
show.
That's true. Yeah. But yeah, you're always so sweet when I post pictures. So
I love it. Like I'm obsessed now. Like I'm like, oh, there they are. I get so excited. Everybody's posting like Catter Day pictures, which is great. But then you post your beagles, and I'm like, oh, feel my heart. So how do you not just like love on them all day long?
I mean, I do, except for when I go to work. Yeah. Yeah. So we had two beagles, and then my older one, which I had her from when she was 7 weeks old. And then right before the holidays, she passed away. So it was like, actually, no, that was right after the holidays, but yeah, ruined Christmas. So, and we have this needy little beagle that we've had also from, she had parvo when we first got her and very sick. So we decided to adopt another dog, and that was about a month later. And so this one, she just looks like a giant, she's a blue tick coonhound.
Okay.
So that's Millie, and she's the giant one. And she's been a trip. So we recently, both of them are hounds. So, we just moved into this house in November, and we have all kinds of rabbits and things outside, and it's been a little crazy. Our neighbors are, a little less than thrilled with us some of the time. So we have this dog trainer that has come over to our house. It's like the next 6 Saturdays he's coming over. So we're always like, you have class now. And so we're learning how to, I don't think we're ever going to be able to get them to a point where they don't care about the rabbits that may or may not be outside, or the squirrels, but we want to be able to walk them and not get strange looks. So that's what we're going for.
That's always good.
There's a lot of howling involved.
I'm going to take a sip of my lovely tea here. So,
okay.
Introduce that you are the author of 2 books.
Oh my gosh, you have them. Yes,
I do. Mr. Right, Swipe, and Switch and Bait.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get back to those in a minute. But yes, so Ricki, tell me about your journey in writing and when you started writing.
Well, and I guess I should take a sip out of my cup too. Now I will tell you one little thing about it. It's not like the coolest looking cup, but this is a Starbucks cup. I don't know if it's coming through very well. Yeah. And it's from the first Starbucks that was in, I was at a conference, gosh, I think like 11 years ago in Seattle. And so I went to, Public Market and all that. And that first Starbucks is there. And this is from there. So there's a mermaid, and she's doesn't have the shells or whatever. I don't know what. Wow. She's kind of naked on there a little bit, but that was cool.
We got naked logo, and yeah, we're ready for a great podcast. And
yeah,
from Ireland. I've brought this on the show once before, but I bought this the first time I went to Ireland. So this is my Ireland mug.
That's awesome. And it looks good with you got the Papa Green there with the plant, and
wasn't even planned.
Very springy.
Man.
Well, as far as my writing journey with these 2 books, I always, I don't know why I didn't think about writing. I always have written since I was little, but never really thought about doing it seriously. I always wanted to be like, when I was in high school and college, if you said to me, well, what are you going to do when you get out? I would say, I'm going to be on General Hospital. And I was very serious about that. I did a lot of theater in high school and college. And as much as I was very serious about it, I didn't really take any steps to try to do that. So I'm an only child, and I'm from Ohio, and, I was pretty close to my parents. So I was thinking, well, how am I going to go? All of that stuff, it just seemed like too big of an animal to conquer. So I never really did anything with that. And I ended up doing the teaching thing. But yeah, I moved to Georgia, and I've lived in Georgia a couple different times. I'm back in Cleveland now, but the first time I lived there, I ended up going to this writers conference, and it was at St. Simon's Island, so this beautiful little, secluded island. And I just learned everything. I didn't even know what a literary agent was. And it was nice because it was a smaller conference. And so they had like one agent came there and told you all about how to do everything. It was like it was Southeastern Writers Association was that conference. And I don't know with COVID if they've been, how it's been the last couple of years, but usually in the summer, it's like a week long. And I learned everything. And I was kind of like, I need to be trying to do this. So that was in maybe 2008. And I read, like the Twilights were out then. And
yes,
I was teaching a high school at the time. So I had a lot of students that were just obsessed. And so I kind of devoured all of those. And at the time I was trying to write young adult. So I wrote, I just kind of learned how to write. It took a while, but I wrote a full manuscript, and I did get some bites on. I would go to a lot of writers' conferences. And that's something that, it's weird now because I think we're just starting to get back into that, where these conferences are being live. But even I've been a part of a lot of that are virtual. And even so, I think, people, that's what you should be doing, is getting out there, meeting people, listening to people who have done this, and, things will click with you. But that's what I did. So I went to a lot of conferences. I pitched a lot of agents. I got some bites, and that stuff was great. I got a lot of full requests, but never quite, it would be like, oh, but we didn't connect with this or that. So I wrote that one full manuscript. And that was a young adult one. And it was okay. But I really learned by submitting my work and having agents and editors give me critiques. That was something that, it's cool now because I will do that at conferences. I critique manuscripts, but it really was invaluable because you would go and you listen. And it's hard to go out there and give people your work and hear what's wrong with it. But that's really what you need. Mm-hmm. So I would take the criticism and try again and this and that. And then I met my current agent at a conference. I was there because I was writing for, which conference was that? I think it was in Myrtle Beach. I think it was a Myrtle Beach conference. And it had something to do with Writer's Digest because I was interviewing agents and I was doing some pieces for them in Guide to Literary Agents about here's how to pitch an agent, or here's what you should do at a conference. So I was going to all those and getting to, because I was doing the articles, I was getting to kind of meet a lot of the people too. And so I met Barbara Poel, and I just thought she was amazing, and at the time she was being really selective about, she didn't do a lot of young adult. She didn't even have it listed as this is something that she takes on. So it was about 2 years before I actually pitched her with it. It just was sort of a whim. I was pitching a lot of people. I'd written another one, which was a lot better. And let me think about this. Oh, well, this was a little goofy thing. So when you go to these conferences, you always should try to meet people and just talk to them and not be like trying to give them your manuscript in the bathroom and all this kind of stuff, but just because these agents, they have amazing memories. You wouldn't even believe, but just have organic experiences with them. Talk to them like they're a person. I remember I was about to pitch actually Holly Root, who is her best friend. And, or maybe I had a critique session or something. I don't know, but I was standing there and Barbara said to me, she said, "Oh my gosh, I love your dress. Where did you get that?" And she said, "I'll buy it off you right now." And I was like, well, I said, I kind of need it because I'm going to be pitching Holly here. I think it was at breakfast or something. We're sitting there. And I said, well, I got it from Target. It was about, $25. I'm like, so she said, well, it looks like a Diane Furstenberg. And I was like, well, it's not, it's from Target. So when I ended up, that was just like a little goofy exchange we had. And so, yeah, a year and a half, 2 years later, when I was pitching all over the place, I was like, what the heck? I know she doesn't accept too many young adult things right now, but I'm just going to send it to her. And the first line of my query, if you've done your homework about how to write queries and all this, you want to try to say, well, I met you at such and such a conference or this and that. And I forget exactly what the opening line was, but I was like, I was the girl with the dress that you tried to buy. And then I did my pitch and she wrote back, ha, 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 send the full. That was the message that she wrote. Like she remembered. And so it was just a funny thing. And then, years and years later, because it from her, and that was the manuscript, she signed me. A couple months later, she had signed me, and that one didn't actually sell. But years later, my first book that came out, Mr. Right Swipe, I found that dress, not mine, but another, there it is. I have it here too. But I found another dress, the same dress, and I bought that for her, and that and I gave it to her.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, when the book came out. So that was kind of funny. But and I still have mine. So maybe we should wear them at the same time sometime. But yeah, it's just like a goofy little thing. And but she did remember, and these agents, they do. So so that's something for new writers, is just go and have experience, and don't be afraid to send some. I mean, don't be super goofy about stuff. It was a little risky, I thought, but given Barbara's personality, and the fact that I had read a lot of things that she had written, in interviews that she had done and stuff. And so I had done my homework with her, and I was like, I think she'll probably get a kick out of this. And if she doesn't, I won't hear anything, and so it happened to be a lucky thing for me.
That's a great point, because that's really what networking is making connections, but building relationships through that. And it's like, no matter what position somebody holds, we're all human beings. Like, we all laugh, and we all, have personalities. So, I mean, it's sometimes people feel like somebody's unapproachable, but you can definitely build that relationship. I have to ask you a random question. Well, it's not random, but I have to ask you a question really quick, because you mentioned General Hospital.
Oh,
so did you have a favorite character? And if you had ever been on that show, who did you envision yourself as being? Because I was, for a long time, I haven't in years, but I was a long time General Hospital fan, because I grew up watching it with my mom.
Yeah.
I probably watched it for 20 years, or 10, 15, I don't know, however long it was, but yeah.
Yeah. I only stopped, I stopped a while ago. I think Grey's Anatomy kind of took over that for me, and especially when a lot of the soap operas started combining, you had all these characters from One Life to Live. I was like, how is Todd Manning on this show? And he's somebody else, and it got really confusing.
Wait, what?
Yeah. And my mom would watch, and she would still be telling me every day. So I felt like I was still watching it even after I wasn't. But yeah. No, I love, Sonny was always my favorite, male character. Sonny, and then Nicholas, liked those two.
Okay.
So I always wanted to be probably Emily. Like, there was a time where Emily was gone. Like, she was little girl Emily.
Oh yeah.
Emily Quartermain. And then she was gone. And before she came back, I was like, oh, I want to be Emily when she's older. And then they brought back that girl, and she was so perfect. I don't know what her name was, but she was great. And Elizabeth. I always liked Elizabeth too.
Okay, wait, which one was she?
Well, she was with Lucky, and sometimes Nicholas.
Oh, yes. Oh,
and Rick.
yes.
I liked Rick Lansing, even though he was like a real scumbag, but I liked him too. She was with him. She was with Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, Jason.
Elizabeth Weber. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I had a bunch of favorites, and I can remember all the way back into the 80s, because my mom and I watched it when I was a little girl. And
Frisco. Yeah.
Frisco. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm not going to hijack the show with General Hospital. One day we're going to chat about this one day, but yeah,
yes.
Oh man, like the General Hospital memory lane. So,
yeah.
Tell me about teaching. Does that impact or influence your writing at all?
Oh yeah, it definitely does. I mean, so my two books they're definitely not young adults. They're definitely adults, but I've written a number of young adult manuscripts that I've not sold yet. But it always does help shape things, because there are so many things that the kids say that I would never know if I weren't right there in junior high with them, or high school, or currently I'm teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. But yeah, there are so many things that they say that I really feel, it makes me feel older and older every year, of course, but it really helps. Yes. And, so I don't know. I like it to sound authentic. I mean, not too much, not to the point where it becomes like every other word you're saying, oh, that's so chaotic. That's a new thing that they're like, well, I don't know if it's new, but I feel like my kids are saying that's so chaotic.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The 8th grade, some of my 8th grade girls, so chaotic. That's been specific to this year. And then my 6th graders, they're still saying things are sus, which has to do with that game.
Yes. So my 9-year-old says sus constantly. Like, would you stop saying that?
Yeah. I'd be like, that's so sus. But
yeah.
so, and some of that stuff can date it, but some of it not. I just, when I see a lot of people's manuscripts when I'm doing the freelance editing thing, and a lot of people are trying to write young adult. I think and I think it's been the same thing for a number of years, that people see young adult as like, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money if I sell young adult. So they're just trying to, they'll try to write something because that is, oh, well, let me write it from when I was a young adult. Like I'll look at a manuscript and it's like, okay, well, it takes place in 1994. And the first question I'll ask is, why are you writing this? Like, I know it's supposed to be young adult and it's 1994, but I'm pretty sure, even without seeing the person, because a lot of times I'll get these manuscripts that I've not seen the person or actually talked to them yet. It just depends if it's a conference or how they've heard of me. But, and I'll be like, I can tell that you probably graduated in the 1990s. And this is why, because this is the last time that you talked to someone that was in high school and you're just thinking about your high school experience. And I'm like, it makes it a period piece sort of now. It's historical fiction, which is crazy, but
oh, that hurt a little.
Right. I know it really does. I read one about 2 years ago that was like this, and there were it was a lot of like Nirvana, and it was fine. I mean, I was like, I'm with you. Like, I got it. Cause I was, I graduated in 1999, but, this guy, I was like, why are you, is it because of this? Like, well, kids this age really want to read this. Could you do the same story that's happening, but set it today? There's no real reason, and I know that that's hard for people to hear. But so that's something that another reason that I like with trying to write young adult. I know I have not published young adult, but I feel like it's more authentic because I've talked to or somebody that's, and nothing against somebody that's 70 trying to write a young adult book, but if you're not around young adults or you haven't, you don't watch shows that they watch and you're not ingrained in it, it's definitely not going to sound authentic, and kids can tell and they're not going to like it.
Right.
So,
yeah. And my hat is off to people who write YA and want to write YA, because I just have no desire to get back in that headspace. And not even that, I am not the right person to even working with teenagers. I just am not the right person to write from that point of view. Mm-hmm. That's just not something I would really be good at. I don't know. I mean, I could probably do it, but it's just not something that my heart would be in. So
and it really has to be, because it really shows. If it's not, it really shows. And there's plenty of, wonderful young adult that's out there. So you really have to think, okay, I want to tell the story, but why? Is it just that I want to put out, I'm trying to work through something that I never did in high school? I mean, sometimes that's really what it is, But you have to think, are there 1,000 other books that are out there just like this that are doing it better? And a lot of times there are. So, they're hard. Writing, it's always a hard pill to swallow.
I want to talk about your books. So I would love for you to tell me a little bit about them. I love how, so they're both dating books, 2 awesome books here. Tell me about them.
Well, so there was, the period of time when I wrote these, I was doing a lot of online dating. It was a weird thing. I was divorced and I was in Georgia, living alone with my dog and in my, early 30s and feeling old then, which now I'm like, okay, but, and just trying to navigate this whole like dating thing and the online thing, because everybody was doing it. And really it wasn't, I was a teacher, wasn't meeting a lot of people, wasn't, it kind of consumed a lot of things. So I had all these really, terrible dating stories. And I would tell people about them, and I'd be working on other things. I was writing this, a couple other manuscripts, wasn't really thinking about it. And then people would say, oh, and I knew all these married ladies, and they would get so excited that, I was single or something. And I'd be like, it's horrible. They'd be like, how are how's dating? What's going on? Have you done this Tinder thing? And they would talk like that. And I would go, well, yeah. And I would pull it up on my phone or something, or Bumble or any of them. And I would just be like, and I would be swiping through these people and I'd be super judgy about it. Because I think, well, one, it was funny, but two, when I was actually doing the online dating thing, trying to find, trying to match with people, I was pretty choosy because I wasn't just looking to, hang around. I was looking for the guy. I didn't find him online dating, but doesn't mean people can't.
Right.
But yeah, so I would have these stories and I would go through and actually the way that Mr. Right Swipe came about, and the original title for that was Love Me Tinder, which I want to show you. Hang on one second.
Okay.
I'll be off camera. The French version of the book kept the title. I don't know if it's good. Love Me Tinder.
Oh, wow. It's
So
always
that's
neat how different they are in different countries, the covers.
Yes. Yeah. And this one has like little, I don't know if, like the little text bubbles, pretty cool. But yeah, the rest of them all changed titles. I think the Slovakian one is called Vroski Zilaski. And I was like, what does that translate to? And it translates to Wrinkles of Love, which like what? Like if you, I don't know, but I was sort of horrified. Anyway,
that could be a whole different story.
I know. And I wish, I just read something, the We Were Liars. I'm trying to think, I think it was E. Lockhart was just talking about titles being changed the other day. I wish I could remember the story. So that's probably not a good anecdote to bring up, but she was talking about that. And I thought of the whole Wrinkles of Love thing. And I was like, that's horrible. But yeah, so I was at an old friend of mine. So Renee Attia, who is a huge young adult author. We have the same agent. And I was at, her first book came out, The Wrath and the Dawn. And I was at a party after, it had come out and our agent was there. And I hadn't seen Barbara in years. I was at this party and tell us about dating. Tell us about Tinder. Pull it up. Let's see who's around. So I'm going through and I'm swiping and I'm going, okay, this guy has a guitar. No. And they'd be like, why? And I'm like, obviously he's, either too into himself because he's probably has all these girls around, or he wants you to think he lives with his, he actually lives with his mother, but he wants you to think he's a rock, like whatever. So I come up with all these things. Yes. And they would laugh. And after that, and I was really trying to make Barbara laugh too. And I just wanted her to think I was cool because it had been so long since the whole dress thing. And, and I hadn't seen her in a few years. And then she didn't like that one manuscript. And so a week later, she messaged me and she said, that's what you should be writing. She said, I really think this is what you should be writing, not this other stuff that you're trying to do. And so again, about the authenticity, and not that you have to write something that you're particularly going through. Obviously, many people write characters, and it's a tough thing because, many people write characters that they haven't lived. So that's, but they do it well, but you just have to kind of figure out how to access, I guess it's almost like a little bit of a method acting thing, but how to access that, or who are you looking at? Like with my students, if I write a character that I don't write like my students, but I'm just saying, you look at certain kids that you've had over the years and certain things that they went through, or certain feelings that you went through watching them and stuff. And you can, I don't know, authentically write a character, but
very natural.
Mr. Right Swipe. So this is one of those things where, okay, it was about a 34-year-old teacher who had been divorced, who hated online dating. Okay. And so that was something. So my husband actually just recently, because we've been married 3 years, I've known him 4. We did not meet on Tinder.
But get to that soon.
Well, yeah. But we could have easily, but he's 3 years younger than I am. And I didn't and that was another thing. I was like, if they were any younger than me, no. So that's why we probably didn't match up, or I didn't see him on there. But anyway, so this one seems like it'd be very autobiographical. And that's why my husband was like, I don't know if I want to read this because I don't know, it's going to be weird. And I was like, well, I'm like, it will seem like me because it sounds like it's definitely my voice. Like if you know me, it's my voice, which is why people either really like it or hate it. So there's that, but it's not this, the plot is not anything that happened to me. It was just like a couple of the dates that are in there. Yes, those are things that picking and choosing, some of that stuff, you know, is sort of maybe the Hollywood version of what happened there, you know. Or, you know, if there were some, everybody has an outrageous dating story, right? So some of that's in there, but yeah, it wasn't like somebody would say, well, who was Nick? I remember these people that I worked with, they said, because this one woman, her son was one of the subs, and she said, is my son Nick? And I was like, no. Nick is the love interest in Mr. Right's Wife. But it's like, no, you know, that none of those things ever happened. But so it's just kind of funny that, yeah. But that one, I didn't have a real hard time with all of the dating stuff, because yes, I had been through all of that, and there were many funny things, you know, that I would even be sitting on a date going, this is so bizarre. Or, you know, in Switch and Bait, there's one where, I don't know, one time I went out with this guy and he insisted that I have this beef tartare, and I was like, I don't want beef tartare, and he kept being like, no, have it, haven't you lived? Like, it was like one of these things where, because I didn't want, you know, and I just thought, this is so weird that he's so insistent upon this beef tartare, that it ended up being in the book. But because it was just a weird thing. So I don't know, I do take some things, I think everybody does.
It's so relevant. That's so relevant to, especially now, especially since, you know, COVID and everything, because it's harder for people. Dating has become, I don't know, a struggle. I have a very close friend who, and I'm just, everything that you're saying, like, I've been married for 21 years, 22 years in June. So I've been off the market for a long time, but my very, very dear friend is on a lot of these dating apps, and we go through it together, and we do a very similar thing where we go, yep, no, or we make up a whole thing about, yeah, and look, he's got to be this, or he's got to be that. And, you know, we swipe through, and it's been eye-opening. It's a learning experience for me. But it's so, that story is so relevant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I imagine it's only gotten crazier in the years since all that. And and I can't imagine, my best friend she's going through that now too. And, you know, 2 years ago, she was like, well, what am I going to do? I'm not going to date. What am I going to do? Where she felt very weird about, you know, the mask, and when do you take, I don't know. I was like, yeah, that would be very strange to navigate. So she goes in spurts of, well, maybe for a little bit, then you get really sick of it. You just, I don't know.
But finding someone is so hard. And I've had so many people, it just keeps coming up in conversation. How do you find people these days? And I'm like, I have no idea, because I mean, like I said, I'm on the farm, you know, with the bad internet, you know, just, I don't know. So, with the husband, and, you know, I'm just trying to get my husband to, you know, pick his clothes up off the floor, but but yeah, I love the premise for both of these books, because it's just something that everybody's dealing with, or so many people, you know, are navigating this world of online dating.
Well, and Switch and Bait is a little bit of sort of like Cyrano de Bergerac, which I'm glad that movie, when it came out, I would be like, oh, it's like Cyrano de Bergerac, and people would be like, what? But there's a movie that I think it just came out, Cyrano. So I'm like, maybe people will watch that, and then if I say it's like Cyrano, then they'll be like, oh, is that movie with Tyrion from Game of Thrones? And I'll say, yeah. But that conversation hasn't happened yet. And yeah, Mr. Right's Wife is like, you know, Bridget Jones meets Trainwreck, like that kind of a love in the time of Tinder, that kind of stuff.
I love that, love in the time of Tinder.
I do have, so those are both published under my old last name, Schultz. I do have one short story that I published. It was in 2020. So this was an anthology of Georgia authors, and it's called Viral Literature. This got the masks on. Alone Together in Georgia. and Clayton Ramsey, he's an author down there. He put that together, but it's all these Georgia authors, and we had to write, some of them are poems, but we were supposed to write in the vein of what we actually do. And so in this one, I have a short story, and it was my first one under Cardenas, Ricki Cardenas, and it's called Corona Care Package. And it's actually sort of loosely based on me meeting my husband. I mean, we didn't meet during quarantine, but it was like, if we had met during that time, like 2 years later, what it would have been maybe like. Wow. So
yeah. Well, that's a great segue into, okay, we usually, a lot of times we'll have a performance segment on the show, which we don't have on this one, but I thought what we'll do is turn that into story time.
Okay. Right.
Because one of the things that I've always found so endearing is your meet cute with your husband, how you guys met and fell in love. That is a story that needs to be on the screen somewhere. It needs to be a movie or like a Netflix series. It needs to be.
You know, I secretly, or maybe not so secretly, would love to write some Hallmark movies. I've been watching these movies forever. I have the Friendly app, watching all these things, and I'm like, man, I could really do something with this. I think our story is kind of good. Like, it seems like really that's kind of funny, but yeah, he was my neighbor. He was my neighbor across the street. And I mean, I was a person that never left my house. I would go to work. So this was when did I meet him? I think he messaged me in 2017. But so I moved into my place. I lived in his townhouse. And I lived there maybe like 6 months before he moved in. And there was a lady that lived across the street from me and next door to him, and named Marie. And she was when I moved in, the people that were my neighbors were like, Marie is, you know, she knows she's the watcher of the whole, like, I knew she was going to know every single person and their whole lives and everything. She would be outside all the time, and she knew all the neighbors, everything that was going on the street. So, you know, I would see her every once in a while if I was walking my dog or something, and she would talk to me about Adam. She's like, oh, my next door neighbor, Adam. She's like, he's so dreamy. And I was like, okay. I mean, she was probably around, 70 years old. And so she would talk about him all the time. And she would say, well, I think he's single, and I would be like, okay, well, don't say anything to him. Cause I hadn't seen him. I think I saw him like when he was moving in or something, but I wasn't sure. His dad was there. His brothers were helping him. So I wasn't sure which one he was or anything. And I was really wary of her just saying, like, making it weird that, with the across the street, whatever. So I said, how old is he? And she said, he's 33. And I was, I think 35 at the time. And I said, well, I'm way older. That's what I said. And so I was like, don't say anything. So I guess she was saying things to him about me also, even though I said not to, but I guess she mentioned me. She said, well, there's Ricki across the street, but she's older that's what he told me that she said, which is funny because I said that. So good job. But he, you know how these subdivisions and things have these Facebook pages now where everybody can complain about how fast people drive and all kinds of good stuff like that. So we were both on that. And I guess he looked me up. He knew my name was Ricki, and he was looking me up. He's his family, his mom lives in Virginia. So he had been there over Christmas and for a couple of days. And it was I don't know. I did see him one time. I went to get my mail, and I probably hadn't showered in, we'll just say a day. I had like sweatpants on. I had these pants on that my dad calls my clown pants because I think they were like joggers, but like loose. So he's like, those are like goofy pants. Yeah. So, and I went out to get my mail, and I was looking, I'm sure, wretched. And he had come home, and this was the first time I ever saw him. He had come home from work, and he was getting his mail, and our mailboxes were, right across from each other. And I saw him, and he was dressed up nice for work. And I was like, oh man, like, this is my neighbor now. This is how he's going to see me. And so I just went like, hi. I don't even know if I said hi. I think maybe he said hi or something. And I waved, and then I just turned around and went inside the house. And I was horrified, as you would be. And then, yeah, a few months went by, I would say. And so it took him a while. So maybe he was like, no, he said he was intrigued and that he liked the pants, which I'm judging him a little bit about that. But yeah, he said basically, he didn't, once things settled down, like because he was on vacation, he was at his mom's. So Christmas Eve, he messaged me through Facebook, that stupid subdivision thing. And he said, oh, I'm your neighbor across the street. And, Marie said that we have a book author living across the street. And I was really intrigued about it. And so I was like, okay. And I was sitting there at my parents' house up in Ohio, and I was laughing because I was like, I think it's my neighbor from across the street. So I'm going through his page. I'm looking, to see all these things. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So I wrote him back and we messaged a little bit. And then it was about, because I had 2 weeks off from school. So I had come up. So I guess it was maybe about a week and a half later when I came back, and we went out to dinner, and yeah, I basically saw him, I think, every day pretty much since then, and really ever since. So we got married. So that was end of 2017, 2018, we got together for our first date, and we got married November of 2018. But it was good.
Wow. That's awesome. No, I just love that story. And so everyone needs to get to know their neighbors. So if you're single out there and you are looking for the right person, go meet your neighbors, hang out at the mailbox,
Yeah.
You can dress up, you can wear
just dress a little bit, when you're going to get your mail, run a comb through your hair, maybe,
or go at your worst, because if someone is interested in you and they've seen what you look like first thing in the morning and they're like, hey, I want to go out with you, then it's real. It's authentic.
Their level of desperation is where yours might be. No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a caveat right there. So we'll rethink that. But, I have never asked this question on the show before, but you and I both are big charcuterie fans. And so what does your ideal charcuterie board look like?
Oh my!
I'm obsessed with charcuterie, and it's been a thing. I don't know. We did it for Christmas.
I don't even think I say it like the right way all the time. So my husband and I like to say it goofy ways, but so I don't, it's funny because I almost brought in like some pepperonis to be like, oh, in case you asked about it. But I mean, I think you definitely have to have pepperoni, or like my husband will get prosciutto and he'll have that on there. It's a little fancy for me, but yes.
I like fancy. I'm frou-frou.
Yeah, I like to have some kind of berry, or grapes sometimes, but like strawberries, blackberries, some kind of like usually almond. I mean, I usually have all these things anyway. So almonds, definitely cheese. Why would that be the fourth thing I said? Cheese is a must, is the number one.
Cheese out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Sometimes the fancier ones have those little spread. I don't usually have spreads. It's usually just, I'm like, okay, maybe sometimes it'll be like we have Cheez-Its or something, and I throw those in there as a little, but you put them in a nice little line.
Yes.
It looks fancy, Yes. And you drink some wine with it, and then it doesn't matter what it looks like. It starts to get better and better.
That's right.
But it's delicious. How about you? What do you like?
Oh man. Okay. Well, mine end up being too big and I can't fit it all. So I have to do I always do way too much, but I like, of course, crackers. You got to have some kind of cracker, but I like the thinly sliced, like artisanal breads or something, tons of cheeses, because I could just eat the cheese and be happy.
Mm-hmm.
Just an array of meats. I do like to have a little bit of chocolate, something sweet, chocolately, dried fruits. I love dates. My husband does not like dates. So nobody in my family likes dates but me, but any kind of like dried fruit, and the nuts is good. I don't always do that, but yeah. A spread of of nuts and things. I'm trying to think if we did anything different at Christmas. That's all we did for Christmas was a huge counter just full of
Oh, that's
charcuterie.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And then
olives.
oh yeah.
Olives. Oh no, that's my big thing. The cheese, the meat, and the olives. You have to have the olives.
I've never done it. I mean, I've seen it done without. I'm not,
Oh.
mine aren't as fancy, definitely as yours seems very fancy. But yeah, that would be really good.
Mine is the kind where you eat the thing and then you get on the scale the next day and it's not pretty. So yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, yeah, it's deceptive because it's just, I could just do that all day. And then, but you think, well, I didn't have that much. I just hear, oh, but yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm definitely like that kind of stuff and dips. I could just, who needs the actual dinner?
Guacamole.
Go to a Mexican restaurant,
Oh,
all of the salt, then they're like, here's another one. It's bad. Yes. Working out definitely needs to be more part of my summer coming up here, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And if it wasn't raining, I was going to go walking tonight, but now it's all stormy and rainy and now I'm sad, but
yeah, it's yucky out
here too. All right. Well, so you're going to be writing soon. You've got a new project you're going to be working on, and anything else coming up that we should know about?
Well, so with writing day workshops, I'm going to be, so I think it's the first weekend of May. There's one coming up, and I'm going to be an editor there. So people can send in pages and I'll critique the first 10. The way that they handle it is, so yeah, you send in your first 10 manuscript pages, I critique them, and then we have like a phone call or a Zoom call for 10 minutes and we talk about it. So I like to do a bunch of I haven't done anything for them in about a year, just with all the moving and stuff. So I'm excited to get back into that. I'm doing that one in May. I think another one and all these are online. I think that's technically the Philadelphia one, but it's online and anybody can join it. And August. And I think I'm actually speaking at the one, I think they're just trying to decide which speech I'm going to do, but I'm guessing it'll probably end up being, I have a speech that I do on self-editing and, tightening things up. So that'll be in July. So writing wise, that's what's on the horizon for me. And I'm excited to get back into that because I really love doing conferences. I love talking to new writers and just trying to give them as much advice as I can, especially in that little 10-minute window. But it's a lot of fun for me. So, because I mean, like, this whole thing is just, there's so much that you have to learn. And I like people to know, be informed so that it doesn't take you as long and you don't make the same mistakes, but
yeah, absolutely. And don't be afraid to learn. You mentioned criticism earlier, and I just have to throw that out there, that critiquing, that process of getting that feedback from editors or for whomever it may be is so vital. And if you utilize it, if you look at that as a benefit, as something positive, it opens up a whole lot for you. You're going to learn so much and just, thrive so much from that process.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't have to do everything that the person says, but you just look at it. And that's what I always tell people. I'm like, well, here's my 2 cents. I'm taking, if I were looking at this from what I know and just as a reader, here's what I think, but you just take what resonates with you. You are the author. At the end of the day, you're the one writing it. If it doesn't feel right, again, that authenticity thing, if it doesn't feel right, then you're not going to execute it correctly. But, a lot of times I'll just mention one detail like, hey, what if this happened? Here's an idea. And maybe they don't use the exact thing, or maybe they do, but maybe that sparks another idea that, it's a plot detail or could be cutting a character. Sometimes I suggest that. And at first it's like, whew, how could I cut this character? But I mean, you just have to look at it. It's very hard to do objectively, to look at this criticism, but it's really important. And it all is, and to realize that when you're in a situation like that, when you pitch an agent or an editor and you get critiques from them and really listen to what they're saying, they're not doing it to be a jerk. They really are. Like, the reason they're there is because they enjoy helping people and they want it to be better. So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, where can we find you?
You can find me a lot if you want to see a lot of dog pictures these days. on Instagram. So my handle is it's Ricki Cardi, Cardi. It's Ricki Cardi Books actually on Instagram. And then on Twitter, it's Ricki Cardi.
Follow her for the dog pictures. Everyone.
Yes.
Everyone, you need to follow her dogs.
I don't know if you can hear the one right now. She's making some, it sounds like a train whistle, almost like one that you blow into. Toot, toot. That's what when she gets a little hyped up. I bet my husband's about to take her outside.
I love it. Oh, all right. Well,
thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun talking to you.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Well, cheers. One last time. Yeah. Well, I got a little bit left. Cheers. And have
me.
Yeah, have a tiny bit. Well, have a good rest of your evening and go eat some charcuterie, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Sounds great.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.